What is up, everybody? We are back for week two. We're going to give it a couple minutes and we'll get started once we give folks a chance to jump on. I know it's a little early, so we may not have too many join us, but in the event they do, we want to give them a chance to go start to finish here. So give it a minute or so and then we'll kick things off. Thanks, guys. It's a little off topic as we kind of wait. So I'm doing a program called the 75 Hard right now. For those of you who aren't familiar with it and are looking for maybe just something to kind of challenge you, head over to 75hard.com. You get a full breakdown from Andy Frisella, the CEO and owner, founder of First Form, um, and the Arate Syndicate as well, which I'm proud to be a member of now. And 75 Hard, essentially, what it is it's a 2-a-day program, but it's more of an accountability and mental sharpness program. So just 2 workouts a day have to be at least 45 minutes in length. One has to be outside. You cannot run them concurrently or continuously, so they have to be separate. No alcohol, gallon of water a day. You got to read 10 pages of a book a day, take pictures, follow a diet. So it's all pretty regimented. I mean, you're free to do the stuff however you want to do it, but you have to do it according to those rules. So it's no cheat meals too. So that's another one. But it may be a little hard for the novice to finish, but it's definitely worth it. As a former Marine, I'm not tooting my own horn, but it's not the most challenging thing. I'll tell you what is the challenging part is the eating. Is really the eating is something that I've kind of learned how to navigate. So I don't necessarily have to like eat perfect all the time, but because this is part of the program, that's what we have to do. So that's the challenge for me. I mean, I've actually come to really enjoy the reading part. The workouts, while it's not always fun to do 2 workouts a day. I've been doing this I'm on day 22, so that makes I have one more workout to do today, so that's 44 workouts in 22 days. So you can imagine 75 days, that's 150 workouts in 75 days. So you can imagine your body changes. So if you're paying attention to me at all, you'll notice that I'm getting in a little bit better shape every day too. So really, really happy to be out of my unhealthy period of time. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome back to the 911 Roll On Fitness and Recovery series. This is week 2, day 1. As promised, we were going to bring you guys some really good information today. So I'm really excited to talk about this because this is something that every time I talk to people about, not only does it blow their mind, but it puts them in the driver's seat to control what their bodies look like. Everybody wants to know, how do I lose body fat, or how do I lose weight, or how can I improve my stamina or endurance, or mental acuity or energy. And there's just a ton of things that come from getting your nutrition right, exercising regularly, and doing things that are good for your body. So the first, the thing that we're going to cover as a whole today is nutrition. We're going to talk about what foods are good, what foods are bad, but then we're also going to talk about how to modify your body. What's the scientific approach to modifying your body? What's your BMR? What is catabolism? What is anabolic? What are macros? And then we're going to go into this thing called IIFYM, which I'm trying to make easy for you guys. So it's if it fits your macros, we'll get into that. But let's get started with let's just talk about good foods and bad foods. So first and foremost, the best food that you can eat, period, is a whole food. So I'm seeing some people do this Whole30 diet where for 30 days they eat nothing but whole foods and they feel great and they start to look better and everything works better in their bodies. And that's because we were not intended to eat anything that does not crawl the earth or grow from it. So whole food is exactly that. And I try to tee this up for people in this way. What are the ingredients in an egg? And they say yolk or cholesterol. And I'm like, no, the ingredients in an egg are an egg. What are the ingredients in a potato? What are ingredients in a tomato? These are not, the same thing as a can of Coke. When you look at a can of Coke and I ask you what the ingredients in a can of Coke, the list is this long, and none of the shit in there is good for you. So, the idea of the whole food is when you can eat a whole food, always choose a whole food over a non-whole food. I'm a big believer in the 80-20 rule. 80% of the things you eat need to be pretty good for you, and then you can kind of fill in the rest as you need. It's very difficult to eat well in today's day and age. That said, it's also not that difficult to eat clean. It's all about your commitment. It's all about your discipline. If you're not a disciplined person, then don't try to go on a clean eating diet. It's just not a good idea. Don't put yourself in a compromised position. Whole foods. So there's that. Another good thing about whole foods, a lot of whole foods that are not meats or proteins contain a lot of fiber. Your vegetables contain a lot of fibers, particularly green vegetables. I don't eat a lot of like colorful vegetables. And people talk about, I like to have my plate all colorful, and they'll go to like, these restaurants and order a salad with fucking nuts and blue cheese and ranch and all this stuff, or not ranch, with like balsamic vinaigrette. And like, I can't get down with that. I'm a chef salad kind of guy. I want ranch dressing and croutons and cheese and stuff. So it doesn't work for me. But greens, spinach and kale and stuff like that are really good for you. But how do you get them in if you don't like the taste, if you don't like it? Well, you can start kind of dabbling with smoothies and stuff. And I'll go ahead and throw out a recipe that I used to use for morning smoothies. It was great. It's Fuji apple, cucumber, some lemon, that's juiced lemon, not like zest or anything like that, and then some ginger, and it actually tastes pretty good. And I can get literally like half a container of kale in that one thing, so I get like almost all my vegetables in terms of like greens for the day in one shot, and it doesn't suck. So just think outside the box when you're trying to incorporate whole foods in your diet. Get them in your diet one way or the other. If you got to make a smoothie out of it, make a smoothie out of it. There are also like supplements you can buy nowadays that are greens formulas, red formulas, stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with taking those. You can absolutely take those, but there's nothing that ever really substitutes for whole, real food. All right, so we've beaten the whole food part. Fiber is something else we talked about, but you've got to have fiber in your diet, at least 25 to 30 milligrams of fiber a day, or grams of fiber a day. Without fiber and water, your body's not going to work very well. That said, without fiber, your mental is not going to work that great. There's just so many processes, and I try not to get too scientific with you guys. So just for the sake of simplicity, fiber good, whole foods good, water good. Nutrient density is probably the one thing that we don't look for enough. So when we assess what we're going to eat, we tend to just choose, okay, I'm this hungry or this hungry or this hungry, and I'm going to eat this much food. And we don't put any thought into what are the nutrients in it? What is it going to do for me? What do I actually need? A lot of you, so I try to use this analogy a lot. When I was in the Marine Corps, obviously we do a lot of physical stuff. We do a lot of training, but they don't teach you necessarily nutrition. You can eat at the chow hall all you want, and the food's pretty good for you, but it's, they're not coaching you on what to eat or telling you how much of it. The thing that I learned is once I started eating healthy and once I started getting enough water, like I felt infinitely better. And once I started feeling better, I started going, damn, like all I had to do was adjust this slight amount and my quality of life went through the roof. So that's not to say that all of you who are not doing this are not experiencing a high quality of life. But what I am saying is that you might feel better than you really thought was possible without really having to do a lot, just making a few better decisions based on your nutrients and your diet, and then just making sure you get enough water. Like if you don't have enough water in your diet, or if you don't have enough water, period, you're gonna suffer. I mean, you don't know what you're missing until you get enough water. Yes, you're gonna pee a lot when you first start drinking the water, but I mean, really, is that such a bad thing? I mean, you guys can drink like 8 drinks at the bar in 2 hours, but you can't put down a gallon of water in 24 hours. It blows my freaking mind. So don't be an ass about it. Drink your water. It's good for you. Everybody knows the body's primarily water anyway. So if you're not giving it water, by the way, ding, 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 ding. Soda's not water. Lemonade's not water. Cranberry juice is not water. Coffee is not water. When I say a gallon of water, I don't mean a gallon of liquid. I mean a gallon of water. So don't try to fudge your way around this stuff, or it's going to show. I mean, it's not rocket science, but it is based on consistency and a baseline and doing things a certain way. So if you're not, don't expect to see the results. And that's kind of the gist of it. But nutrient density. So how do we assess that, right? Well, I mean, obviously we can go back to Whole Foods and look at Whole Foods typically tend to have a higher nutritional density than some other foods. I personally am on a regimen right now of liver and organs, primarily because liver is the most nutrient dense organ in the body. When animals and they kill other animals in the wild, they go for the liver first. Why is that? Not just because to them it tastes good, but it's got all the good stuff. So they go for that first, and they suck that down, and then move on to the rest. So I started incorporating that, and the indigenous people believed that if you consume the organs of healthy animals, that those organs would help boost the performance of, or heal, or be good for your corresponding organ. So if I eat animal's liver, it's gonna be good for my liver. If I eat an animal's lung, it's gonna be good for my lungs, and so on and so forth. It's kind of crazy, but you ever get a chance, check out Ancestral Supplements. They've got a whole line of stuff, and they do a really good job of articulating why. It's a fantastic company, fantastic products, and I'm very, very happy with the product so far. But the important thing here is, most whole foods are going to be your best bet for nutritional density or nutrient density. There is a difference between nutrients and vitamins. They're not one and the same. General rule of thumb for those of you who are supplementing, a vitamin should be taken in the morning, and a nutrient or mineral should be taken at night. Great example, magnesium is something that I think everybody is not getting enough of. I take it every night before I go to bed, along with zinc and iron, and I sleep great. But the best part about it is I haven't had a knot in my body in 2 years. I started taking that stuff a while back, and it's just been a wonder mineral for me. It's done so many things for my gut health. It's done so many things for my sleep. Magnesium does relax you a little bit, but it also pushes calcium out of your fascia, which we talked about last week. Fascia is something that runs the length of your body. It gets tangled up, your muscles get jumbled and stuff like that, and that's what causes the knots. And then what I didn't tell you is that when you have a knot that's left alone for any period of time, and you are deficient in magnesium, but in abundance of calcium, that knot's going to calcify, and that's why you can't get that knot out. Which is also why we use the Sorite. The Sorite applies so much firm pressure as opposed to a foam roll that you can actually break it up. Without the Sorite, you're not going to be able to break that stuff up. You're going to have to go get a massage. Sorite's a lot cheaper than a massage, and you only got to pay for it once. So I highly recommend you get over to Sorite.com to get you at least the standard original Sorite. That's going to do so much for you. Okay, so we talked about that. Let's jump into bad food. So bad food. We all know fast food's bad for us. We know processed food's bad for us. We're not going to talk a whole lot about that other than this. If you want to get healthier, you got to stop eating that trash. It's plain and simple. The more fast food you eat, the more your body's going to go into a stress response and release cortisol. And the longer that cortisol is present in your system, the more at risk you are for disease. Let that sink in for a second. The more you eat fast food, the more that stress response is kicking off in the body, because your body doesn't know what to do with it. Our diets have changed so dramatically in the last 100 years. When I say dramatically, we weren't eating fucking French fries 100 years ago. We weren't eating Doritos 100 years ago. We were eating Ho-Hos and Pop-Tarts and McDonald's breakfast sandwiches and all that shit. We weren't doing that 100 years ago. And so when you look at our body's adaptations, look at the 1900s, the early 1900s, like literally like 1905. You see these pictures. Do you see anybody with a big gut? Do you see anybody, walking around? Well, I guess technology wasn't there, but you didn't see a lot of diabetics. You didn't hear about a lot of diabetics. Granted, if somebody got sick with something, they probably died back then, but now, modern medicine keeps them alive. Doesn't give them a good quality of life, but it keeps them alive. So my point is, our diets have changed faster than our bodies have adapted. And for that reason, we have disease. For that reason, we have leaky gut syndrome. For that reason, we have ADD, ADHD, and all these other things that are coming about because they're throwing stuff in our bodies that's screwing up our chemical balance. It's screwing up our gut biome. It's screwing up everything that, our body calibrates for us. And we don't think twice about it because we don't know any better. So that is going to lead me to land on bad food number one, sugar. This one's going to hurt a little bit because it's Halloween and most of you are probably still taxing your kids' candy bags. But sugar is the enemy. Sugar will also produce that cortisol response, but it does a whole host of other things. And I won't get into all of it, but the basics are what you need to know. Number one, sugar will disrupt your body's natural process. It will disrupt the insulin production in terms of accuracy and how much insulin to produce. It'll disrupt your metabolism. It'll shut down your fat burning. So let's say that you woke up this morning, got right into fasted cardio, and then you came home. After you come home, instead of let's say you eat, and let's say you ate a good meal. Let's say you ate some eggs, some oatmeal, whatever. We'll just keep it simple. And then an hour later, 2 hours later, you decide, oh, I'm going to have a candy bar. Or I'm going to eat a Pop-Tart. Or I'm going to eat just something with, let's just say, more than 15 grams of sugar. What's going to happen is your body's going to turn off the fat burning. First things first. It's going to say, what sugar does is it tells your body, hold on to everything you got. So you put sugar in your body. The only time that's not true is immediately following a workout, but we'll get into that later in this series. Don't try to experiment with it now because you don't know what you're doing. Right now, it's important for you to understand, like if I were to get up right now and go eat some sugar, by the time I eat my next meal, my body is not going to burn it. It's going to store it. So basically, eat sugar, store your calories. It doesn't matter if they're good calories, bad calories, they ain't going to where they're supposed to go. So if you eat a bunch of protein and then you take some sugar, or you eat some sugar, that blood is going to thicken up. Your arteries and veins are going to tighten up, and you're not going to get nutrients delivered to where they need to go. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot by eating sugar, even if you're doing it right before bed. You do sugar right before bed, it's gonna spike your energy. It's gonna disrupt your REM sleep. It's gonna disrupt your gut. You're probably gonna go to sleep. If you guys eat a sizable amount of sugar, you notice you're waking up in the middle of the night. And you might not make that connection now, but now that I've said it, I think you will. It's really, really, really dangerous. I mean, the amount of sugar that we consume in this country or in the world really is absurd. Even Halloween, like I have a hard time with Halloween because literally I know that we're getting these huge bags of candy and it's going to be munched on for night after night after night for like a month because there's so much of it. I mean, and now it goes into Christmas time. Now Thanksgiving. And it's a wonder these people pack on the pounds over the holidays. I mean, it's just designed for us to sort of self-destruct intentionally. So stay the hell away from sugar if you can. I know it's a tough one to do, but it's not good for you. Which leads us to number two. You're really not going to like me now. Alcohol. Alcohol is so bad for you. So bad for you. And let's just label it like it is. It's poison. It is not good for you in any way, shape, or form. And let's examine this from a couple different perspectives. First of all, chemically speaking, when you drink alcohol as a male, it kills your testosterone production. So let's say that you're on a test booster, or you're taking testosterone, or you're just out natural and your testosterone levels are good. You go out on a bender Friday night, kill your testosterone before it has a chance to regenerate. Thanks, Corey. I'm going to answer that in just a second. So let's say you go out Friday night, have a bunch of drinks, wake up the next day, your testosterone is going to be low and it's not going to build up. And then you're going to go out drinking again on Saturday, kill it all again. Then you'll go into, Sunday to try to recover, but it takes you 2-3 days to recover. It's not, as you get older, it gets worse. And a lot of you will know that. At what point is alcohol bad? Corey asked, one glass 20, where's the line? Honestly, I mean, I've known a lot of guys that were bodybuilders that would have a glass of wine at night because they claim that like it would really help slim their waistline and just accelerate fat loss. But I honestly don't know anyone who, well, that's not true, but I don't know a lot of people who train and actively try to modify their bodies and improve them that are active drinkers. I just don't. A lot of them switch over to cannabis. I personally did that. I haven't had a drink in probably 5 or 6 years. And it's not, for any kind of major problem. It's just that I started to notice, the only thing I remember about drinking are two things. One, I look at my bank account with a sad face, and two, I always feel like crap the next day. But to answer your question, I think personally, I mean, if you're basing the question on where where's the line so that I don't go over killing my testosterone, I'd say probably two drinks. Um, I think any more than that, you kind of saturate things and you create a situation where, and it also, I think, would depend on what you're drinking. Personally, I believe, and this is based on a lot of different factors that I just can't summarize, but I believe that clear spirits are better. So, I don't know if that's helpful, but if you can drink, like, say, club soda and vodka or something like that, it's gonna be a lot better than drinking a bunch of whiskey or a bunch of beer. Um, Beer really doesn't do a whole lot of good things for you. Packs on the pounds really quick. You get a gut really quick, really, really fast. You got to drink a lot of it to get where you want to get. So, more of the alcohol, the worse on the testosterone. But I would say glass two is probably where you need to be mindful of it. Now, I know a lot of people who take testosterone injections, who and they drink on a regular basis. I think they probably pump themselves with way too much testosterone, and what happens is those are the guys that at 45 years old um, are having heart attacks. So I can't really sit here and say that, like, past a certain point, alcohol gets worse. I mean, bad from the get go. When you start to combine it with other things to try to compensate for what it's doing, it's more of a problem. Um, yeah, I mean, it's for me, switching to cannabis has been the best decision I ever made, and it's like I don't have hangovers, And one other thing is when you're trying to, like, be competitive and or challenge yourself and make a difference in your body, like, one of the hardest things to do is eat. Most people, and we'll get into this in a second when I talk about body modification and diet, but most people undershoot the amount of calories they need. So, consuming cannabis also helps people eat more. I don't think that's a secret, but it's a handy tool, especially if you're trying to clean up your physique and stuff like that. So, alcohol is it's kind of a no-no for me. I do not recommend it. If I ever put somebody as a client, if I put somebody on a plan, alcohol is the first thing I identify that needs to go. So, do with it what you will, but I'm not a fan. I don't think it has any place, and I think it's detrimental to progress. So, to each their own, but that's my take. Now, processed and fast food, we already talked about it a little bit, but the body will go into a stress response. So it doesn't mean that you're going to stress out or have an anxiety attack. It might mean that down the road, and you might develop some problems like that down the road. But from an immediate perspective, the worst thing that's going to happen is indigestion and constipation. But over time, you could fray the lining of your intestinal walls, which will lead to leaky gut syndrome, which will lead to nausea and sickness and worse problems. So just be mindful. Again, 80-20, like, eat 80% whole foods or 80% good food, and then save that 20% for that Thursday night or Saturday night or whatever. But don't overdo it. Like, a lot of people, they go on these diets and, like, oh, I have one cheat day a month, and they go to fucking China buffet and eat fucking 30 days worth of food in an hour, and I wonder why they're not meeting their weight loss goals. It's like, look, you got to do things within reason. So anyway, um, that said, I think the thing that y'all want to hear most about is the body modification. So let's get into that. So there are a lot of fad diets. So, like, we've all heard of keto. We've all heard of Atkins, which is repackaged as keto. We've heard of the macro diets. We've heard of, counting calories, so to speak, which macros and counting calories is sort of the same thing. But we're not counting the calories, we're counting the macronutrients, which are mathematically easy to trace to what the caloric expenditure or intake is of that. So, quick little math lesson. A gram of protein has 4 calories, a gram of carb has 4 calories, a gram of fat has 9 calories. So if you're looking at a nutrition label and you want to reverse engineer what the macros are according to what your calculations are, that's how you can do it. There's some other formulas you can use to figure out what the nutritional density of your food is based on those macros if you're weighing your food. But I'm not going to get into that because I don't think a lot of people who are watching this are ready to do that. So I'm not going to get too far into that and alienate anyone. However, I am so there's two schools of thought around weight loss, and I'm very careful to use this term. I don't give a rat's ass about weight loss. It means nothing to me. It is not representative of a person's health. It is not representative of a person's um, like their physique. It's not representative of anything that I can measure that matters. Yes, being heavy can put a strain on your frame. Absolutely. But if your body's optimized and your joints are healthy and you've titrated that up, then your body's prepared to handle that load. It's when you're starting to throw too much at your body and you accelerate your weight gain too fast and it puts undue stress on the joints, especially like your knees and your hips and stuff like that, that it starts to really have an adverse effect. So my thoughts on on this, you have your BMI, which a lot of people use too often, and you have your BMR. I go by the BMR. BMR stands for basal metabolic rate. Now, a body mass index is something the government came up with, and it is a crock of shit. I mean, by their definitions, I'm obese. I'm obese. So it doesn't make any sense. And weighing yourself, Corey, you were in the Marine Corps. How many times did you weigh in? I mean, you were a pretty in shape guy. You weighed in, every time we had to do weigh-ins, and I mean, I was 193. I mean, I was literally at the max weight I could be, but I was like 10% body fat. So how was I overweight, even though BMI said so? So that's why I don't like BMI, because it's not representative of the truth. Yeah, you may weigh something. That doesn't mean anything to me. So BMR, basal metabolic rate. What does that mean? That essentially, in layman's terms, means the exact amount of calories that your body needs to optimally stay the way it is. Now, most people, when I put them on a BMR, like BMR utilized regimen, even hitting their BMR, they're losing fat, because most people under or overshoot their calories. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's normal, but yeah. But I think that, as a rule of thumb, we need to know what our BMR is just to guide the way we eat. Like, I sit here and I talk about nutrient density. Well, how do you know what you need unless you know what your BMR is? You don't. So let's examine that. So BMR is a function of a couple different factors. You can go to google.com and type in BMR calculator, and the first thing that comes up, you just jump into that and plug in this information. I will be providing the algorithm to those of you who subscribe to our email list. So that will go out and you'll be able to use that and keep that and save that. But for those of you who aren't and don't want to be, go ahead and jump into Google and look that up. But basically, it's a function of your height, your weight, your age, and then there's a sort of a contingency formula for how active you are. So for example, for me, and I wanted to do this for you guys, I'm going to calculate my BMR so that you can understand what's going into it. So I'm going to calculate my BMR. I am 37 years old. I am 230 pounds. I'm 5'10", and you stipulate that male or female. So I calculate my BMR right now, and it's 1,975 calories, which seems pretty low, right? But I work out pretty strenuously and very consistent. So I probably would calculate a 1.5, 1.6 variable. So you get your BMR, and then based on your activity level from sedentary to very intense, you'd be multiplying by a factor of 1.1 all the way to 1.8 to 1.9. So you kind of pick what your activity level is. If you're working out one time a week, you're going to be about 1.1. If you're working out, extraneously, then you're going to be about 1.8, 1.7, 1.8. So according to the BMR calculator, for me, my daily caloric intake is right at around 3,400 calories. So that's quite a bit of an uptick over 1975, but I'm very, very active. Now, what happens if I don't hit these calories? We're slowly going to migrate into that. Basically, what happens is if you don't eat enough of those calories, you get into a deficit. Some will call it a deficit. I call it catabolic. For those of us who are trying to lose fat or maintain muscle while we lose some fat, or even grow muscle while we lose fat, it is of the utmost importance that we are not carrying a daily deficit. Now, there's a lot of competing theories here, so I'm not shitting on anyone else's. Everybody has different things that work for them. Every body is different. But when you are catabolic, essentially that means you are breaking down muscle for the protein to use as energy. And protein is the worst energy source there is. The best is fat, the second is carbs, the worst is protein. You'll notice that you're burning protein if you feel like shit and you haven't eaten in a while. You're catabolic, you're breaking down. You'll also notice your muscles that you work so hard to grow, or your body that used to look good is going to start to look like shit. So it's all indicative. You got to use the right energy sources. You got to give your body enough of those energy sources, and protein is just not, it's not fit. Anabolic is kind of the opposite of deficit, the opposite of being catabolic. It is, if catabolic is doing without, anabolic is doing with. Anabolic is growth, catabolic is breakdown. Anabolic is surplus, catabolic is deficit. These are all kind of synonyms, but they do have their place in this. So I'm going to give you guys some gold. If you watch nothing else, this is going to be probably the most important piece of this entire series. Yeah, the entire series. If you are on a mission and you are trying to lose some body fat, mind you, I didn't say lose weight. I don't give a shit if you lose a pound. I want you to lose body fat. The way to do it is this. Calculate your BMR, factor in your activity level, eat that number of calories for 3 days. After the third day, drop it 400 calories. The next day, go back, add those 400 back. Continue to eat that for 3 days. On the fourth day, eat less. And what this does, it takes your body 3, 4, 5 days to adapt to whatever caloric changes you're providing it with. Another thing to know is whether you give your body 500 calories or 5,000 calories, it's going to burn that much. So that 4 to 5 days is the body's adaptation period. So that if you eat 500 calories for 5 days in a row, by day 5, your body's only burning 500 calories. If you eat 5,000 calories for 5 days in a row, by day 5, your body's burning 5,000 calories. Now, you're still going to pack on weight because you're taking in a lot more calories than you were, but your body will adjust to burn whatever it is you're giving it, because it's a predictor of what it's going to get to use. So that's where you hear a lot of the analogies with like furnaces and stuff like that, because the body is like a furnace. If you want to burn a lot of fat, if you want it to be in its best optimal stage, you got to keep that furnace hot. You got to keep throwing wood in it, aka you got to keep eating smaller meals to continue to keep that furnace burning. So that's sort of how you stay in an anabolic state while dropping calories and not going into a catabolic state. So it's kind of a trick. A lot of people will just say, hey, we'll just live right under our BMR, and that's our deficit, and we're going to stay there. The problem with that is that if you miss a single beat on anything, your body's going to go into that stress response, and now all the work that you've done at that point is going to kind of reverse itself. Your body's going to pull from one place, rob Peter to pay Paul, and all those other things. Disrupts your gut, disrupts your sleep patterns, disrupts your regularity, and everything kind of goes to shit. So again, I'll just kind of reiterate. Now, if you're trying to gain muscle, then just eat above your BMR, period. And how proportionally how much you eat more, or how much more you eat, will determine how much more you grow. But that little secret, that 3-day BMR, fourth day drop, then resume, that most people who are not doing anything nutritionally or exercise wise or anything like that, most people I've seen, my clients have lost 8 to 10 pounds in that first 2 weeks. It's not unheard of, and it's not a crazy thing to think, because when your body starts working right, it starts letting go of stuff, right? So that's where your body works. If it anticipates that it's not going to get anything, it holds on to everything. If it anticipates that it's always going to have what it needs, it's not going to hold on to anything. So that's the difference between somebody who's shredded and somebody who's not. Because that person that's shredded, they started off in that surplus and they slowly peeled their way down. And after they peel their way down, that's why they're not rebounding. That's why they're not crashing. That's why they're having all those problems, because they stayed in the smooth bell curve on the way down. So that's kind of how you need to approach this. You're not going to get skinny overnight. And if you do, it's not going to last. So our goal here is to have lasting results that we can control. It's not just to get lucky every summer, and it's not to go on a binge or a purge diet and get dressed up in trash bags and sweats and try to run a marathon. That's a really, really stupid thing to do. So BMR is a great tool in calculating where you need to be, and it's a great baseline from which for you to modify the composition of your body. The way that we can track this is, do we need to count calories? Not necessarily, because if we can count macros, then we can take the guesswork out of it. We can take the hard part out of it, right? So, for example, if I were to tell you, well, let's take my example, 3,400 calories, right? So if I'm going to eat 3,400 calories in a day, I'm going to break that into as many meals as I can, because that's a lot of food to eat, right? So if I were to divide 3,400 into 6 meals, that's 566 calories a meal, 567 if you round up. And that's a lot of food to eat, especially if it's clean food, because those of you, like, I can go get a thing of chicken nuggets from McDonald's and, 500 calories will be gone in 4 bites. But if I do something healthy, it's going to be like 60 bites of some mountainous, amount of food, because good food, while it's nutrient dense, you got to eat a lot of it to get what you want. So it's a lot different when you're eating clean, 566 calories of clean food, i.e., chicken, ground turkey, lean ground beef, whatever, plus rice and veggies. You got to have a lot of that. So in order to hit that, it's kind of difficult. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about how to do it. So let's say 566 calories are my goal, right? So 3,400 is my BMR, 567, we'll just call it 567. So if I have to eat 567 calories every meal, I don't want to have to count those calories, right? So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to break it into my macros, right? So my macros are protein, carbs, and fat. They're called macronutrients. Protein, carbs, and fat are kilocalories. So they're subunits of measure of calories, right? So if I have, let's say that I'm going to take, and this is a very, very beginner split, let's say I do a 40-40-20 split, right? So that means that 40% of my calories are going to come from protein, 40% of my calories are going to come from carbs, and 20% are going to come from fat. So if we're going to calculate that, I'm going to hit 40%. That means that I have to eat 226 calories, 227 calories from protein and carbs. Well, that's 227 calories. Remember what I told you, a calorie or a gram of protein or a gram of carbohydrates is 4 calories. So I'm going to divide 227 by 4, and that tells me that I need 56.7 grams of protein and grams of carbs in every meal. Now you see it. Maybe a little taller order. You can break it up into more, go for it. But most people aren't willing to eat 8-10 times a day, unless it's delicious food. So that's kind of a challenge, but it can be done. You don't have to aim so high, and if that's not working, your intake needs to be proportionate to your activity level, right? Or at least close, because if you're burning way more than you're eating, then you're going to constantly be in a deficit. And if you're eating way more than you're burning, then you're constantly going to be in a surplus. So you got to understand which direction you're going and keep an eye on it. So this is a way to kind of shrink the numbers that you have to track. We went from 3,400 to 567 to 227 to 56. So we're at 56.7, 57 grams of carbs, 57 grams of protein. And for good measure, we'll weigh out our fat. But generally speaking, I don't really keep track of fat. I try to hit my protein, I try to hit my carbs, and I don't add any fat. So if fat comes with it, then fat comes with it. But if I get a roll, I don't put a bunch of butter on it. I eat the roll, but I'm probably not eating rolls if I'm following a diet. So some of those things kind of take care of themselves. But macros. Now, once you've gotten down to your macros, so we have 57, we can kind of look at the situation a little less with a little less scrutiny. I just say it that way. Um, there is a philosophy called IIFYM. IIFYM stands for if it fits your macros. You may have heard of this. You may not understood what macros were at the time, and now you do, so this should make sense. Essentially, what this means is, and there's a story I'll tell you in a second that kind of circles back to it, but if you hit your macros, in theory, it shouldn't matter what you eat. And this is evidenced by a story I'm going to tell you. So there was, and don't run away with this, okay? This is a very slippery slope. But there was a guy who was, a fitness aficionado, and decided he was going to do an experiment. So this experiment was that he thought that as long as he ate calorically and not even so much macronutrient wise, but calorically to his BMR, that he could maintain a healthy diet. And his plan was to eat nothing but Pop Tarts and Ho-Hos and like junk food for a month. So he went to the doctor, he got his labs done. Then he proceeded to eat Pop Tarts and Ho-Hos for a month, hitting his BMR every day, and that's it. Not going over, not going under, just hitting his BMR. And then after 30 days, he went back to the doctor, got his blood work done again. And he was healthier after a month of just eating to his BMR. Now, that doesn't mean that over a long period of time that he won't develop disease, that he won't have problems, that these things won't go the opposite direction. But it does go to show that there is a positive response to that in the body. So, you know, I have not always eaten really clean, but as long as I have this mindset, like I know what my expectations are of myself. I know that when I sit down to eat, that I need X amount of protein. I need X amount of this, X amount of that. A good rule of thumb, if you're, on, it's all going to depend on your goals, but a good rule of thumb is a palm of protein, um, a fist of carbs, and a fist of vegetables. Or a palm of protein, a palm of carbs, and a fist of vegetables. But generally speaking, you can use, and what's great about this is that your measuring stick is your measuring stick. It's the size of your hand, not somebody else's. So don't go order a shack size steak and expect, steak may not be so much of the problem. You got to get 57 grams of protein that might be necessary, but fat can get away from you really quick. Carbs can get away from you really quick. You don't necessarily need them all. So if it fits your macros is a way of kind of giving you the luxury and the freedom to pick what you want to eat. And as long as you stay within your macros, you should have a good outcome. And if you're doing the 80-20 rule, you really have nothing to worry about. You're going to do fantastic. So I think that the thing to remember here is if it fits your macros, only works if you're accountable all the way through. So it's not going to work if you just eat like shit all the time. Over time, that's going to add up to a negative or a diminishing return, right? So we don't want to go there. So if it fits your macros is a great way to really allow yourself some freedom to eat the food that you like. But in the same time, it's going to help you get to a place that you want to get aesthetically, and it'll make you a healthier person. So today, that's kind of all we're going to cover today. That was the gist of it. Kind of just giving you a little bit of a rubric with which to evaluate what food you're going to eat, how you're selecting that, and then what to stay away from, and as well the body modification information that we gave out here was just, I can't tell you. I mean, I had some information that took me many years to figure out, and a lot of trial and error, a lot of mentorship, and a lot of painful months eating clean, getting not the right results. Just generally, this is not an easy thing to do, guys. Like all this stuff is not something that you can just go to the store and buy a book about. This is not something that most fitness professionals are going to give you. They want you to pay them for this stuff. A trainer is not going to tell you this stuff, and you're paying. But I am, because I see a problem with the way things are going. I see obesity on the rise. I see illness on the rise. I see disease on the rise, and that's just not cool. I mean, we're here, because of 911. We're here because of Pure Light Nutrition. We're here because of So Right. We're all working together collectively to bring you guys stuff that you can use for the rest of your life to keep you healthy. In a large part, this stuff's going to translate to your mental and probably going to make you wealthy. So, as long as you apply yourself in the right places throughout, this is going to be very, very beneficial for you. And, with some of this information, some of you guys can really take off in your fitness game. So if you have aspirations of wanting to be a trainer or a coach or an influencer or whatever, a lot of stuff will be useful for you. So make sure you take a lot of notes with this. So that's really it for today. We're going to pick up tomorrow. We're going to talk workout. So last week I gave you one workout. I just wanted to kind of dose you into it. We're going to take it another step. I'm going to give you an entire week's worth of workouts. So if you have the ability, join us tomorrow. If not, just look out for the video. Check out the 911 Instagram page, Facebook page, or YouTube page, and you'll find these videos. If you're on our email list, you'll get it as well. If you're not on our email list, get over to our website, 911rollon.com, sign up for it. You get 15% off your first purchase with that sign up. So there's really no reason not to do it. A note on 911, guys, there's a lot of things you can do, a lot of things that go into this fitness stuff and the recovery stuff that can be preventive from you guys making progress. Don't let sore muscles and pain and all that stuff get in your way. The things that we're putting in place here, the things that I'm teaching you, can really help elevate your game so that you don't have interruptions in your progress. So I think that it's not so much of why should you, get these things, but what you can't accomplish without them is probably the more important question. So get over to 911 Roll On. Check out last week if you didn't. It's in the blog section of the website. If not, go to our YouTube page. I'll post a link to that here. And we will see you tomorrow for the workout session of this and Thursday for recovery. So thanks, guys, for joining us. And you all have a great day. Corey, thanks so much for joining. Thanks for your comments. And hopefully we'll see you next time. Thanks, man. And you guys, love you guys. Just take stock in this. This is very, very, very useful information, and you're not going to find it anywhere else. So thanks so much for joining.